The Minority Market. Episode 45. Creating a repeatable process that works. Most people in the stock market chase results. They focus on profits, targets, and quick wins. The minority focuses on something far more powerful: process. Results are temporary. Process is permanent. When you build a repeatable process, you remove randomness from your actions and replace it with structure, discipline, and consistency. This is how professionals operate. This is how long-term success is created. A repeatable process is not about predicting the market. It is about creating a structured sequence of actions that you follow regardless of emotions, news, or short-term outcomes. The market changes constantly. Your behavior should remain stable. Stability in behavior creates stability in performance. Let us begin with clarity. A repeatable process starts with knowing exactly what you do and why you do it. What conditions must exist before you take a trade or make an investment? How do you select opportunities? How do you define risk? How do you exit positions? If any of these steps are vague, inconsistency enters your system. The minority removes ambiguity by clearly defining each step. Think of your process like a checklist. Before pilots take off, they follow checklists even after thousands of flights. Not because they are inexperienced, but because structure prevents costly mistakes. The minority treats market participation the same way. They follow checklists not to limit intelligence, but to protect discipline. Another important aspect is standardization. Doing the same actions in the same sequence builds muscle memory. Over time, your mind learns what correct behavior looks like. This reduces emotional interference. When behavior becomes automatic, emotions lose control. Many beginners believe flexibility means changing strategies often. In reality, flexibility means adapting execution within a stable framework. The minority does not change their core process frequently. They make small improvements while keeping the foundation stable. This allows learning to compound instead of resetting every few weeks. One of the biggest enemies of repeatability is improvisation. Improvisation feels exciting, but it creates inconsistency. Acting differently each day makes it impossible to measure performance or improve effectively. The minority minimizes improvisation and maximizes structure. Let's talk about time structure. A repeatable process includes when you analyze, when you act, and when you review. Random analysis times create emotional decision-making. Planned routines create calm behavior. The minority schedules their market activities just like any professional task. Another critical component is decision filtering. Not every opportunity deserves action. A repeatable process includes filters that eliminate low-quality setups. This reduces overtrading and preserves mental energy. Fewer high-quality decisions outperform many low-quality ones. Risk management must also be part of the process. Defining risk before entering any position removes emotional reactions later. The minority does not decide risk after the trade is active. They decide it beforehand. This protects capital and mental stability. Process also includes exit discipline. Many traders focus heavily on entries and ignore exits. The minority understands that exits determine profitability. Defining exit rules in advance prevents emotional holding and premature selling. Let us introduce the concept of process ownership. When you take responsibility for your process instead of blaming the market, improvement accelerates. Losses become feedback. Wins become confirmation of discipline. Ownership shifts your mindset from victim to operator. Another powerful element is repeatable review. Reviewing performance should also follow a process. Same questions, same metrics, same reflection structure. Random reviewing leads to emotional bias. Structured reviewing creates objective improvement. The minority also understands that simplicity improves repeatability. The more complex your system becomes, the harder it is to execute consistently. Simple, clear steps reduce errors and emotional stress. Complexity impresses others. Simplicity builds wealth. Let us discuss adaptability. A repeatable process does not mean rigid behavior. It means having rules for adaptation. For example, reducing activity during low volatility periods or adjusting position size during high volatility. Adaptation becomes part of the system, not emotional reaction. One of the strongest advantages of a repeatable process is psychological stability. When you know exactly what to do, uncertainty decreases, stress reduces, confidence increases. You stop reacting to noise and start operating with clarity. Another benefit is scalability. When your process is clear, you can increase capital without increasing emotional pressure. Without a process, more money increases stress. With a process, more money becomes manageable. Let us build a simple framework for a repeatable process. First, define your market preparation routine. What you check before market hours. Second, define your execution rules. When you enter, how you size positions, how you manage risk. Third, define your review routine. When you analyze performance and make improvements. This three-part structure creates stability. Discipline strengthens process. Process strengthens discipline. Together, they create a feedback loop that compounds over time. The minority understands that success is not built by motivation. It is built by systems. Remember this clearly. Motivation fades. Emotion fluctuates. Process remains. When you commit to a repeatable process, you remove dependence on mood, confidence, or excitement. You become consistent regardless of conditions. As you continue with the minority market journey, understand that building rules and aligning them with personality prepared the foundation. Creating a repeatable process is what turns those rules into daily action. This is where theory becomes practice. Over time, repetition builds mastery. You stop guessing. You stop reacting. You start operating with structure and calm confidence. This is the quiet advantage of the minority. If you want lasting success, stop chasing outcomes. Start building systems. Build behavior that can be repeated every day, every week, every year. That is how small advantages compound into large results. Consistency is not accidental. It is engineered, and your process is the blueprint.